Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. The House Judiciary Committee voted along party lines Wednesday to authorize subpoenas for Special Counsel Robert Mueller's full report, with Committee Chair Jerry Nadler arguing that lawmakers have the right to see the unredacted version as well as all supporting evidence.
The committee must see everything, as was done in every prior instance. Obviously, some material will have to be redacted before it's released to the public to protect privacy, and we're not willing to let the Attorney General, who after all is a political appointee of the President, make that substitute his judgment for ours.
The subpoena threat coming after Attorney General William Barr said last week that he'd release a redacted version of the 400-page report no later than mid-April. George Terwilliger served as William Barr's Deputy Attorney General in the George H.W. Bush administration. Welcome. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming in. As a matter of law, what is the Attorney General required to turn over to Congress regarding the Mueller investigation?
Well, it's entirely in his discretion. What he's really required to do, he's already done. That is, tell him that he got the report. He actually went beyond that, Paul, as you know, to summarize the, quote, principal conclusions in that report. But it's also entirely evident from all the publicly available information that the AG is committed to transparency and is trying to get as much of the report to the Congress and to the public, I might add, as the law allows.
So what about this, the argument that the AG has made is that you have grand jury testimony, for example, that you need to redact, that you have intelligence sources and methods that you might need to redact. And of course, under Justice Department rules, you don't want to include information about people who haven't been indicted for a crime, but that might tarnish their reputation. Are all those justifiable reasons to redact in your view?
In my judgment, they are. I mean, the first two are to use a colloquial phrase, no-brainers, because it's the law. The third one is a policy, and we saw with the antics of Jim Comey what happens when that policy is violated and people who aren't charged are nonetheless the subject of what appear to be official opinions and conclusions.
What about this distinction that Congressman Nadler tries to draw between what might be released to the public regarding grand jury testimony and what is given to Congress? He says Congress has the right to see it all, everything, even if the public doesn't. Is that a fair distinction?
I think it's a debatable distinction because he's relying on Watergate-era precedent under the old independent counsel statute. This regulation, in fact, was designed, and I might say designed on a bipartisan basis with Janet Reno, then Attorney General Janet Reno's full participation, to limit the information that comes out of a special counsel investigation, exactly for the reasons we were just discussing.
So if they don't turn over everything, if there are significant redactions, or for that matter even minor redactions, and the Congress says, sorry, not good enough, we got to have it all, and they subpoena the Attorney General and he says, I'm sorry, I can't give you more, what happens then?
Well, the Congress has remedies apart from a subpoena. I must say that the current talk of a subpoena strikes me as a lot of political theater surrounding this. But the Congress can petition the court and demonstrate, meet the test of demonstrating that they have a specific need for that grand jury information, which ought to overcome the secrecy that attaches as a presumption to such information.
Well, but and this distinction about turning over something to Congress, I mean, you know, Congress is a sieve. Anything that's turned over that doesn't come to that the public hasn't seen, it's going to be leaked, and it may be leaked selectively. I mean, let's face it, that's a realistic view of what happens.
Well, of course it is, and it's not only a realistic view, but the empirical evidence supports your conclusion. But the fact of the matter is, Paul, that I think the Attorney General seems to recognize that, and that's why he is aiming for as much public transparency to all of this as is possible.
And you have any reason to believe that what's in the report itself, that is in the 400 pages, would be contradictory to Robert Mueller's conclusions about collusion and obstruction?
I have two reasons not to believe that. One, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, is a very intelligent man, and he's not going to get out ahead of his own headlights in terms of summarizing the principal conclusions of the report that would be inconsistent with the report. Secondly, you know, this was a comprehensive investigation, and those conclusions seem to be relatively ironclad, even if Mr. Mueller didn't deign to make a judgment about the obstruction statute.
Okay. The one other issue I want to ask about, and that is this request from Congress for the tax returns of Donald Trump for 6 years. Is the statute, in your view, that the Ways and Means Committee is relying on, is that pretty ironclad when it says the Treasury Secretary shall produce the tax return?
I haven't studied it extensively, Paul, but from what I have seen, it does unfortunately seem pretty ironclad because in general, as you know, tax return and return information is subject to a great deal of confidentiality. But this was an outgrowth of the Teapot Dome scandal, one of a number of statutes that scandal produced that probably deserve a second look.
But then if they do submit this request again and finally issue a subpoena, I guess if they resist, it goes to court as well, right?
Yes, I mean, again, as I say, I haven't studied it, but there may be some basis to challenge that subpoena.
All right, George Terwilliger, very helpful. Thanks for being in.
Nice to be with you, Paul.
President Trump on a tweet storm today, railing on the Russian witch hunt and the Mueller probe as the release of the report approaches. Here with reaction to that and more, former White House Communications Director, founder of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci. All right, Anthony, let's hit it. We don't have a lot of time. It's always good to see you.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. All right, President definitely tweeting up a storm. Talking about time the perpetrators of this fraud on me and the American people start defending their dishonest and treasonous acts. They'll never be satisfied no matter what we give them, a total waste of time. This is what I love.
Justifiably upset.
He says there's no collusion. It was a con job that was paid for by Hillary. You got to love him. Yeah. Paid for by Hillary. And he says, how did it start? And finally, you know, why should I be defending a fraudulent Russian witch hunt? What do you say about all this?
Well, I understand why he's upset. He's totally justified. But I think the arguments I would like to make for him is in the context of that Justice Department over the last 2 years, they would never put out a memo like that where they're saying effectively there's no collusion and there's no further indictments. There's nobody in that Justice Department, Judge Janine, that is carrying the president's water. That's my
for
point.
Sure.
So therefore, I would like to be making the point that, hey, wait a minute, they spent 2.5 years, $30 million, and whatever you think of Attorney General Barr, he's not going to carry the president's water. He looked at the report, gave the abstract, and the abstract is that the president's free and clear. So why can't we go on to resolving the border crisis and talk about the great jobs, developments in the economy, the wage growth, and talk about things that are very relevant to the American people?
But they don't want to do that. I mean, Adam Schiff and the rest of them.
Because it makes them money, Janine.
They're raising money on it.
Of course.
That's
They're sending out a form letter. We're still going after President Trump. We're still going to try to knock him out of office. Don't you hate him as much as we do? And so what they've done is they've demonized the process. You know, one thing the president said to me after I got fired, frankly, I was on the phone with him one night, and he said, you know, did you think it was going to be like this? I mean, I didn't understand, or I underestimated the level of hate.
Yeah.
Because the guy's doing great. And when you're doing great and you're an outsider disrupting their system, they want to kill you. Because what are they going to say? 40 years in business. He comes into Washington after 17 months of campaigning, and he's done an amazing job as president. These guys got 40-year resumes in Washington, and they've created a disaster.
Well, you know, and I want to get to that.
That's why they're so crazy on him.
They are crazy on him. But one of the things that no collusion, there's no obstruction, no indictments, nothing, and that now no obstruction according to Barr and Rosenstein. Rosenstein, I'm not the biggest fan of, you know. But the fact that he said it, you know, maybe it's certainly.
Well, my point. Look, I full disclosure, I went to law school with Rod.
Did you really?
Yeah, we were at our 30th year reunion last night in Boston at Harvard.
Yeah.
Now, I always liked him. I told the president I liked him. I understand why you don't like him. I understand what the facts are.
He took Mueller in to be the head of the FBI. Then he appoints him special counsel. Then he gives him the mandate to investigate. I don't want to go through it.
We don't have to go through the whole thing. But here's my point. Okay, let's just say either you don't like him or he's neutral. He's not carrying the president's water. Right. That's the point.
I agree with you there.
And so therefore, guys, back it up. Why don't you focus on the issues? Because maybe you can't win on the issues. That's probably the reason.
Well, they can't. Okay. Listen, I want to ask about the Friday's employment record. I mean, it was the continuous unprecedented job gains. But one of the indirect benefits of that is that there apparently is a fairly significant increase in the federal minimum wage, 196,000 jobs added. And just it's almost collateral, but it's because there aren't enough people to fill the jobs, exactly. So they're up to like $25 an hour.
So this is like this probably happened 45 years ago, where you literally have more jobs available than there are people to fill the jobs, and so that's very, very good for participation. Now more and more people are going to enter the labor force. And it's exactly what everybody wanted. So I don't understand why they're saying, well, let's bring in illegals to fix these jobs. You don't want that. Let's get the wages up for lower class Americans and lower middle class Americans so that they can participate in the society. You've had 35 years where you turn these people into desperational working class people. I grew up in an aspirational working class family where we were trying to live the American dream. The president is bringing back that aspiration to these people. Why don't you give them the opportunity to have higher wages? You know, slow down the illegal immigration. I mean, I don't even understand we're having that debate. You have Democrats and Republicans that passed the laws. Every other nation, there are 200 of them that are for legal immigration. We're the only one that's for illegal immigration.
Oh,
it doesn't make any sense.
It is stunning. And I just have one issue. I think that we've got some of the Trump people. Let's take a listen to them. I want you to hear this sound. Trump haters.
A president today who is a racist, who is a sexist.
What you did in this last election, man, we cut our time in hell in half.
The truth is, President Trump is tearing the moral fabric of this country apart.
All right, so all these Dems, politics. I mean, are they going to win tearing Donald Trump apart?
I don't think so. I think that reinforces him. I think he's also, they're playing right into him. The more they do that, the more the American people know what nonsense it is. That's not going to win. You got to win on issues. You got to have a factual debate with the president. The president's right on policies, and he's a common sense leader. That's why the economy's doing so well, and that's why the stock market likes him.
Yep, and that's why they don't like him.
And we love you, Janine.
Oh, thank you.
We love you. That's important to mention, too, before we go to the break.
Thank you.